What is good, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Rory Gissing, and in this video we're going to be discussing how is it possible to go to the gym when you're carrying an injury in a safe and effective manner. So injuries can be super frustrating, but it doesn't mean it has to end your fitness journey there or even just pause it for the next 12 weeks until you recover. There are still ways where you can still go to the gym and train safely and get results while having an injury. Now, I do need to mention I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice, but just my experience as a competitor and how I was able to maintain or even make progress when I have an injury. So I'll be using my own examples of the injuries that I've picked up over the years, and these are going to be both previous or current, and how I'm going to be able to continue making progress despite the injury. You really should be strategic when managing an injury. So these are the steps I like to follow while enabling the healing process to occur and still being able to train. So step one is understanding your injury. Now, this should be done by consulting a healthcare professional, either a physio or a doctor, someone who's qualified to diagnose what the problem is and the severity. The injuries I've dealt with over the past, the worst one being my labrum tear. That one absolutely sucked. It's the first time I've had a major injury, actually tore something, and I'm still feeling the effects of that even to this day. I'll also be discussing a minor pec tear that only took 6 weeks to heal, and then my tennis elbow, which I've been dealing with for the last 2 months, and it's still ongoing as well. So once you've understood the severity of the injury, now it's time to adjust the workout plan accordingly. I'm going to start with an example where you can actually still go to the gym and train, it just hurts like hell. So a really common injury is tennis elbow, like I have. It's simply tendonitis running down the inside of your elbow, and the golfer's elbow, if I'm not mistaken, is when you have tendonitis on the outside of your elbow. This is a sort of injury where you can still go to the gym and you can train normally, so maybe not normal training, as you're going to probably not be able to do as much just because the pain may just get too excessive, and that can actually lead to further complications down the line. So the first thing we need to discover in how to adjust the workout plan around the injury is how to work out pain-free. It is super important to be prioritizing pain-free movements when you do your workouts. This is probably gonna take a little bit of experimentation going through the exercise on a lighter weight to know what you should or shouldn't do, judging by the pain. Pretty simple rule: if it hurts, don't do it. I didn't overhead press for 2 years because the pain in my shoulder after the labrum tear was just not worth it. So my only option for shoulders was spamming lateral raises. I still got really good results by doing that, but now it's actually settled down to a point where I'm back overhead pressing without any issues. If you're struggling with your exercise selection with your workouts because of the pain, then drop a line in the comments and hopefully the community can help you out and give you some suggestions of alternative exercises to try. But now let's talk about what happens when you completely tear a muscle off, and of course there's no alternative to bicep curls if you have a bicep detached. And of course in that scenario, surgery is the only option. You have to get that repaired and put back onto the bone, and you're going to have to leave that alone to let that heal and repair. And don't listen to the internet in that case, only listen to your doctor or your physio for your rehabilitation. However, this is a method on how you can prevent muscle loss or muscle atrophy when you really do pick up a serious injury like a full tear. There is a crazy phenomenon that occurs in the human body called the cross-education effect. I am by no means an expert in the subject, so I'm just going to summarize what this is. The cross-education effect is when you train one side of the body, you actually get stimulus on the opposite side. So by training your right bicep, you can still generate a stimulus on your left bicep by only training the right side and not touching a weight on the left side. Yeah, it sounds absolutely crazy, but I highly advise you look into it because that helped me out when I had my pec tear. My tear was on the left side, so I still trained my right chest and my right shoulder while just letting the left side fully rest, and I was still able to maintain my muscle mass even by not training for 4 to 6 weeks. Now, there are limits to the cross-education effect. It is not 100% perfect. It doesn't work that way. You can still get imbalances. However, your imbalance from not training at all is probably going to be much greater with that atrophied side. So step 3, depending on the severity of the injury, you might need to focus on rehab and flexibility, or mobility is probably actually a better term. With almost all injuries, you're probably going to experience a lack in mobility, so it is super important to build that mobility back up before going 100% back into the gym. So do keep stretching that injured muscle. Of course, if your doctor says you need to have 2 weeks without stretching before we can reintroduce it. Say if you've had surgery, you probably need more than 2 weeks, probably 4 or 5 weeks. But bringing your mobility back to what it was before, or even better, is super important. Now, some people do report that stretching can even speed up recovery, but I'm not going to pretend I know anything about that. However, you can fix tennis elbow through stretching. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm making sure that elbow has all its mobility returned. It actually originated in my wrist, which then made my forearm tight, which then made my tricep tight. I just left it for too long and that elbow started seizing up. So stretching out my wrist, my forearm, my tricep is actually what's making my tennis elbow go away. And I've swapped the exercises out that used to hurt it. So even though it's the tight tricep, all of my pulling movements were what was driving it crazy. And because it originated from my wrist, I actually found that doing dumbbells and cables were the solution instead of fixed bar, barbells, or lat pull downs. However, that's not going to be the case for something like a labrum tear, which moves us on to step 4, strengthening the surrounding muscles. So what I found since the labrum tear, my shoulder doesn't sit firmly in the joint. I actually feel it's somewhat separated from the joint. And again, I have to build that surrounding muscles to keep it nice and tight, prevent further injuries. So being the shoulder, that means doing all of the rotator cuff exercises. And that's going to be able to translate to most joints. If you have one weakened area, make sure your surrounding areas are strengthened to make up for that weakened area. Step 5, listen to the body. We touched on this already with trying to do pain-free workouts. Your pain is a response mechanism that something is not right. And just by ignoring that or filling yourself with painkillers is going to just make things significantly worse. So listen to your body and pay attention to the pain signals. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't overhead press for 2 years. I probably didn't need to wait 2 years. I just gave up trying on testing that overhead press movement after just it not feeling right for so many months. Plus, I was still getting good results only doing the lateral raises, so why would I need to put it back in the plan just for the sake of it? Step 6, nutrition and recovery. Make sure you do have a good diet to maximize your recovery period. Just think, if you're eating pro-inflammatory foods and you're suffering with tendinitis like tennis elbow, then you're not doing yourself any favors. Now, my diet never really changes. It's always the typical bodybuilding diet: chicken, rice, beef, eggs, potatoes, and just throw in some vegetables to every meal. But a particular amino acid can be quite helpful with injuries, and that's L-glutamine. I like to take around 20 grams of L-glutamine when I'm carrying an injury. I did give collagen a go, but I wasn't too convinced it made any difference. But another super important factor to optimize your recovery is your sleep and stress. If you're not getting plenty of sleep, you are going to be slowing down your recovery, and the same goes for stress. If you're in a very stressful situation, your stress levels are through the roof, you're going to spike your cortisol, and too much cortisol is going to mess with the recovery cycle as well. So in that situation, supplementing with ashwagandha can help bring down your cortisol levels to a moderate amount and help the recovery process. Now, as hard as it is, a lot easier to say it than do it, but stay positive and patient. Getting injuries absolutely suck, and if you're really dedicated to the grind like I am, then it does feel like your whole world's falling apart if you're unable to train for a certain amount of weeks. So hopefully in this video you've learned that you can still train, just potentially not the injured area, or you can do some cross-education effect training. It doesn't mean the end of the journey. Stay as positive as possible and do what you can instead of fully giving up. And now I need to highlight the importance of patience. Do not rush the recovery process, because that can result in re-injuring yourself and extending the time of not being able to train to 100%. So take all of those steps into consideration when planning how to train around your injury. And again, make sure you have consulted your healthcare professional first to check the severity. With that being said, if you take the right approach, it is going to be possible to continue making progress in the gym despite the setback of injuries. Guys, if you got this far into the video, please just take 2 seconds to like the video. And if you're not following already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you have some advice that I haven't mentioned in this video to dealing with injuries, please leave it in the comments so we can all benefit from it. That's everything for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.